The Houston Rockets are one of the most polarizing teams not only in the NBA right now, but arguably ever. They play with a style that has come with an insane amount of backlash, doubt, and ridicule. However, when things are clicking with them, they can beat anybody. Conventional is not a word that seems to be in the vocabulary of anybody within the Rockets organization, because the way they do things is anything but ordinary, and yet somehow it works. That is, sometimes it works. James Harden's greatness comes into question on a regular basis, but for the topic of today's video, we're going to be talking about his running mate, Russell Westbrook. The Rockets gave up a ton to acquire Russ, and the results have varied, especially in the playoffs. So throughout this video, we're going to be discussing the conundrum that the Rockets have on their hands with Westbrook, what has been going wrong, what's been going right, and why he's now the biggest X factor in the entire NBA. Before we start though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. To start off, let's just go back to what went down last summer and refresh ourselves on how much the Rockets gave up to bring Westbrook to the team in the first place. After Chris Paul suffered a disappointing injury in the conference finals of 2018, he came back last year and just didn't look like himself. So being the ambitious GM that Daryl Morey has proven to be, he went out and made a major splash. He traded Chris Paul to the Oklahoma City Thunder along with a first-round pick in 2024 and 2026, while also including pick swaps in 2021 and 2025 in exchange for just Russell Westbrook. The first rounders included have top 4 protections on them, as do the pick swaps, but ultimately, looking back, this was a ton to give up for one guy. This is especially the case with hindsight now that we saw CP3 re-emerge this year, and head-to-head this postseason, CP3 outplayed Russell Westbrook and played a big part in the Thunder overachieving. The Rockets haven't really relied a ton on youth over the years though, and draft picks have rarely been their focus, so if Russ works out, then they would definitely be comfortable giving up that much. But the thing is that Russ is a star player and at his peak can lead you to a win over anybody. Plus, he has the ability to make plays for those around him and handle the ball comfortably, which was another need for Houston alongside Harden. However, despite Russ never really being a good perimeter shooter in years past, this year his jumper has been an absolute nightmare. Over his entire career, Russ is only a 31% shooter from deep, and at his best during his MVP season, he was only a 34% shooter from 3, all of which are numbers below league average. But this year, he is quite literally, without any exaggeration, one of the worst shooters in the NBA among those that take them in high volume. This season, he shot an abysmal 25.8% from 3 on about 4 attempts per game, and on a Houston team that loves three-point shots, this was a problem. Especially earlier in the year when they were still running Clint Capella at center, who has proven to be a very solid young rim protector and rim runner over the years, but he doesn't have a jumper in his arsenal, and the spacing was far from ideal at that point. The connection between Harden and Capella in the pick and roll was always a lethal go-to for the team, but now with Westbrook in town, they either had to try to work out the spacing issues or cater more towards Westbrook, and ultimately they chose the latter. In a move that has become infamous with starting a movement that many have doubted and still doubt to this day, the Rockets went all in on small ball when they traded Clint Capella to Atlanta in a multiple team trade that resulted in the Rockets receiving Robert Covington. Covington is one of the most versatile defensive players in the entire NBA, capable of holding his own against anyone at any size, and most importantly, he's a capable, albeit streaky, shooter from the perimeter, so they managed to find the floor spacing they wanted without sacrificing too much defensively. The trade was mocked and ridiculed because without a center on the floor, the thought was that they would get dominated by bigger opponents. But what people failed to realize was that the Rockets have a ton of versatile defenders that work their asses off, and what followed was instant success across the board, and Russ immediately reaped the benefits in the regular season. The first game with Covington on the team was against the Lakers, and Westbrook exploded for 41 points in a win against the team that sits atop the Western Western Conference, and from then until the end of the regular season, he averaged 30 points while shooting 52% from the field. When healthy, Westbrook has always been at his best when he can use his speed and explosiveness to take defenders on one-on-one and blow by them for a finish at the basket. With the floor spaced out for him more than ever after the Capella trade, he genuinely looked like he was playing the best basketball of his life, because the spacing that he never really had in Oklahoma City, combined with the attention that Harden receives from defenses on a nightly basis, allowed him to attack all day long. He smartly cut back on three-point attempts, his efficiency went way up, and the Rockets looked like a real threat. However, when he injured his quad, that's where things took a turn, and since he's come back from that setback, he just hasn't looked right. He missed the first 4 games of the playoffs because of it, and since he's come back, he's been, to put it lightly, not great. In the 5 playoff games he's played so far, he's averaging only 15.6 points, 8.2 rebounds, and 4.4 assists, while shooting the ball an abysmal 39% from the field and 17% from 3. He most notably looked terrible in Game 2 against the Lakers, which was the cause of this video, because the Rockets definitely look like they can compete with the Lakers this series, but in order for them to pull off the upset, they need Westbrook to play much better. Last game, Russ shot 4 of 15 from the field to score 10 points. He committed 7 turnovers, all of which were bad decisions and relatively unforced, and the Rockets got outscored by 14 points with him on the court. James Harden played 39 minutes last night, and the Rockets outscored the Lakers by 8 points in that time. The drop-off when Harden goes to the bench is the exact reason they traded for Russ in the first place, so the fact that it's still a problem is frustrating to say the least for Rockets fans. He's been missing bunnies at the rim, his classic pull-up mid-range jumper has not been falling, and after smartly avoiding the three-point line, he's started to fall back in love with the three-point shot and allowing defenses to trap him into shooting those shots, which is almost always a victory for the defense. A lot of the things he's been messing up in the postseason is mental, such as the turnovers and the shot selection coming from his decision-making. But he's also missing shots that he's been known to make previously. He obviously has it in him to play better, because this season we saw it for about a 2-month stretch, as I mentioned earlier. There's a lot at stake in this year's playoffs for Russell Westbrook, because he's been known to struggle in these moments, and before this year, he hadn't made it past the first round since the Kevin Durant era of the Thunder. Health may or may not still be affecting him, but at this point, nobody really wants to hear excuses like that. The Rockets have managed to stay afloat to this point without any big-time performances from Russ, which is a good sign, and ultimately, if Westbrook gets it going again, as I put it in the title of this video, he becomes the ultimate X factor capable of changing the tide of any series. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think Westbrook needs to do to get going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.